as I mentioned before, try to do it, try not to use tension. You know, tension might arise at the beginning, but it's not our goal. You know, it's okay. So it will go away with time, but don't think that proper concentration requires strong tension in your body or in your mind. And so this stage of repeating resting, that's where we start looking inside. So that's a stage when our attention turns and we look into our mind. Before that, it was more like outside job. You know, we had this outer object. Even if we talk about object of visualization, you know, like during Vajra recitation or Hung syllable. So it's kind of visualization, it's kind of inner object, but the way we concentrate on it, we're still using this kind of outer approach as to outer object. So in this way, we separate, yeah, there is like subject and object, there is like you and your object, and this separation is really strong, yeah. But with the next stage, you still use your object as the anchor, you know, like the point which keeps you grounded. But also when you still looking outside, but your inner gaze, like you're starting to turn your attention and it starts looking inside. And when I speak about these different stages of shamatha, remember at the beginning I told you it's not necessarily that you reach one stage and you like stable as a rock, you know, and then you just step to the next stage. It's fluctuating. The one moment you feel that you reach that third stage, and another moment you lose it completely and you go back to first stage. So, and like you might go between like first, second, and third stage, many stages, many times during your session. And it's okay. When you lose your concentration, you forget about that object. What is the next? You coming back to the first stage. Okay, first and second stage. But during this third stage, what's happening? Like you, for example, you still look at the pebble, but then your 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 awareness already noticing moments when you're getting when you are about to be distracted. So like sometimes it's like a wave, like you hold on it, you hold your attention there, but you kind of start feeling as something pulling you away. So this already means that part of your attention turn inside, because that the point that you can notice it, that something pulling you away from the object, it's already because you starting looking inside. Looking inside your mind, it's not like you just you turn, you know, like, and you start you know, browsing inside, you know, whatever process is going in your mind. It starts from this, not when you are starting to notice changes, or like what changes happening during your concentration. You starting to notice this fluctuation, you know, of your attention. This already turning you, like turning your attention. This already starting, you're already starting looking in your mind. And we spoke about that the path to the enlightenment is working with your own mind. So Shamata is a skillful mean which helps you to start looking in your mind gradually, you know, because when we speak about jumping into the state of Mahamudra, or like sudden, you know, insights, when you like suddenly can find yourself in a state when you have strong awareness or so. But this this is gradual steps which help you to understand how it all works. At the beginning, before I did shamatha practice, I had experiences of Mahamudra, And so I already had these experiences. But when I went into my first retreat, the problem was I did not know how to jump into that state without presence of my Lama. So of course, Guru Yoga was very helpful to kind of open up to that state of Mahamudra, but there was no guarantee, you know. And so at my first retreat, when I just I was trying to stabilize the state of Mahamudra, but I went wrong path. You know, I had this experience and I was grasping in it. I was trying to bring it back and to stabilize it. So through Guru Yoga, and sometimes it would work, but sometimes not. So there is no guarantee that it will work throughout my path all the way. But when I started to do Shamata practice, I started to understand why, like, all the, you know, all the small parts of this machine, you know, how it works, why it works this way. And so then you really understand how awareness unfolding, because awareness unfolding, because your mind becomes calm. And when your mind is calm, clarity and awareness, which are natural qualities of your mind, are here. So, and cultivating awareness, it's not only like trying to do something, trying to create something. Sometimes, like I heard many times, like, cultivate awareness. You have to cultivate an awareness. And like, I have no clue what is that, you know. What does it mean to cultivate awareness? What does it mean? And like, sometimes we're scared to ask questions because we're supposed to know, you know, but we don't. And it's kind of, and we pretend, I mean, like, I'm talking about, like, not about you. I mean, where some people like pretend that they do have awareness, and I feel really sorry for them, because they might have understanding what awareness is, but it might not be full understanding, because remembering to look at your reaction is also awareness. But we are talking about a different level of awareness. Awareness, which is always present, it's like something that absorbs what happens in your mind. We're talking about that level of awareness, not only awareness which recognizes what kind of emotion you have, but awareness that absorbs what you're thinking about. Where thoughts arising, like from where do they disappear? So, and this is something which is ever present, and it just observes. It doesn't do anything, but this observation already have this effect on mind, which does not allow us to grasp to whatever is arising. But this kind of awareness, it's difficult to cultivate just by wishing to cultivate it, because it's unfolding only when your mind is calm and clear. Clarity is the aspect which actually helps to see awareness part. So, and this part is natural, and it will naturally unfold. You will see it naturally when your mind is calm. And but when we speak about calm mind, there is also misconception. Like we could say, like, I'm tired, I don't think about anything, I'm sleepy, I'm calm. This is not calm mind we are talking about. Calm mind is a mind that does not grasp for whatever is arising in your mind, like whatever habitual tendencies, whatever thoughts or reactions you have to whatever you perceive. So there is no grasping. And then calm mind is resulting from this absence of grasping. But this is also tricky, because we cannot tell ourselves don't grasp. So basically you cannot tell yourself, calm, I'm going to calm my mind. Right. So awareness and clarity just unfolding. So you cannot order yourself, because grasping, we have very strong habit of grasping. Everything that we experience without awareness is grasping, through grasping. So just having intention to kind of get rid of grasping does not work. So then we're using another type of grasping, which is used in Shamata practice. That's true, but I mean, like, we are using grasping at specific object, at chosen object.
Yeah.
So that kind of grasping becomes ineffective. Understand? Yeah.
So would that narrowing of grasping also be, so instead of like so grasping could be likened to attachment, right? And the inversion of attachment is avoidance. And so when we're grasping onto that non-grasping, it's really an avoidance of the result of non-grasping. It's a fear-based response of, well, I don't want to be in the condition that this leads to. Is that right? Or
So this is true, but I've been the non-grasping. Okay, we can. It kind of can unfold also. Like, you know, like, yeah, there are different types and different levels of grasping. But when we speak about non-grasping, okay, for example, you have, for example, you like hear some sound, like some sharp, or like you meet somebody with whom you had like unpleasant experience. You meet dog who bite you like once, whatever, yeah. You meet Doberman, yeah. So it's not some French, whatever, you know, like what it's. So yeah. But you see, you meet Doberman, and like you had this experience of Doberman who beat you or whatever, scared you, and so then every time you see the Doberman, you have the same kind of reaction, like aversion type, you know. But another person who haven't never been beaten by Doberman loves Doberman. I love Dobermans, you know, like so, and so like when I see Doberman, I have different reaction, and so it's also automatic. Yeah, I am like, wow. So you know, like your heart melting, you know, like, but what I'm talking about, based on previous experience, we have this automatic reaction, and that is grasping. And then it's based on grasping of our previous reaction. So basically, that's a rising of habitual tendency. This is habits, and then we have this negative emotion, and we start thinking, oh, I better go to, you know, I better choose another path, or like I better avoid this dog, or like it's so terrible that Dobermans exist, you know, something like that. But I mean, like, whatever, yeah, whatever extent, you know, somebody's mind can go. But what I'm talking about, thinking, like, you have this reaction based on your experience, and then you have thought, and then you basically that point that you already have thought means that you grasp for it. So yeah, it's based on attachment and aversion, but when we speak about this kind of subtle grasping, we don't notice it. If we would be able to recognize it, there would be no grasping. For example, when you are very angry, or somebody is very angry and is able to stop at the moment of anger, and tell themselves, okay, I'm going to stop, I'm not going to continue with anger. So they cut through this grasping. They do not continue, you know, thoughts. So we're talking about this kind of grasping, subtle grasping. And that's in relation to practice of shamatha. We start to recognize how this subtle grasping at thoughts happening, because sometimes we have emotion just arising. At the beginning, whatever is arising does not have emotional kind of, how to say, flavor. Yes, it is just like a wave in ocean. It's like a wave arising, and at some point, when it reaches the level where your karma is activated, or your like habitual tendency on a deep level, when it starts arising from the natural state of mind, it does not have flavor of positive or negative. But then, for example, when you have like some reaction, so then you already missed the point. There was already grasping happened. So if there is recognition arising together with that emotion, so then it's there is like no grasping happening. So it's either recognition or grasping. Yeah, it can be a little bit tricky to understand, but going like simple way practice of shamatha helps to understand how all this like mechanism works, how all this kind of engine of like grasping is activated and how it works. And you start to understand it when you choose object of concentration, and we say like you grasp your attention grasp. It's not grasping really, but you place your attention to the object. Yeah, it's kind of narrow. Let's say it's very like it's just like narrow attention. Like you put your attention on one object, but through this, because the all energy, the prana flows towards the object of concentration, it does not nurture your habitual tendencies. And at one point, so your level of concentration will depends on how calm your habitual tendencies. So, and like if your habitual tendencies are very strong, it will be difficult to concentrate. But when we are training in concentration, your habitual tendencies and grasping becomes like more subtle and fades away, and it's like that. And when you have like really balanced mind and strong concentration, so then it means the grasping is not so powerful anymore.
And it's also kind of insidious. I mean, for instance, non-grasping is just a concept. When we say non-grasping, people say, oh, I'm attached to non-grasping, but they're not. They're attached to a thought. And so it's something that's more habitual and, like she says, so subtle that we don't see it. And then you start to realize it's kind of like the first noble truth. We're just really, really in a very problematic situation, but that's not the end story. So you're using thoughts to get beyond thoughts. It's like they say, like in India, supposedly water in the ear. The solution is to put a little water in the ear and it all flushes out. And I think of it sometimes too as, Dharma, this word Dharma has so many different meanings, I think 13 or something, but Dharma with a small d, kind of mean like phenomenon, appearances, anything. But yet we're talking about Dharma with a capital D. And what does that mean? Those are the appearances that are actually helpful, useful. Loving kindness, concentration, mindfulness. So we're forced to use, these situations, what we experience in a dualistic way. We can't just jump to. I mean, it can be fortunate, I think, because of previous karmas. It can happen that people can have, a realization experience, like maybe as a result of a previous lifetime, you don't know. But basically, everybody has to use these practices. That what's so funny, there are so many people, I think, in the West who, for one reason or another, they're kind of attracted to paths of liberation, and they like the concepts of how wonderful everyone has Buddha nature, whatever, all these wonderful transcendent truths. But strangely, so many people reject the conventional methods by which this is gained. I sometimes think of it, forgive me for going on, but it's like that we have a photo of His Holiness Dalai Lama at one of the events that he had in Miami Beach, or Miami. And because we were involved in the organization of his visit to Buffalo, SUNY Buffalo, I mean, we know, of all the people that go to those events, probably maybe 1% are Buddhist. And a picture of him walking out of this event that he had, and all these different people, it's kind of like it's like a Peloton ad or something, because you had every different diversity and variety of sexes, everything. And they're all happy, smiling. And so people understand, they sense there's something really good there, valid. That's what I want, that peace, that happiness, that freedom. But very few people are interested in the methods. But what produced the Dalai Lama? How did he get there? That's what's sort of tragic about the whole thing. We find ourselves, I mean, again, like I often say, I'm sure there's nobody in this room who said, I really want to be involved in the Drikung Kagyu, Tibetan Buddha. No one thinks like that. And yet we're so unbelievably fortunate to have all this dumped on us for whatever reasons. Like she said, people have the different methods wanting to be happiness. Doesn't matter. There's something deep that's going on that attracts people to anything profound like this. And so what do we have? I mean, we end up with Garuche. How do you do that? And now, because of his efforts, we actually have transmission of these things to people who can talk your language. It's just mind-boggling to me. And like someone said to me this morning, you know, we have a wonderful teacher and we have a dozen people show up. I said, yeah, Garuche would come. We have 100 people. And I always think, you know, why don't we have 1 million? But then again, I look at my own tortured past, you know, and you know why, because it's ignorance. They're just blinding things you don't see. Anyway, and that's because of that habitual, subtle grasping that we do.
Thank you, Frank. And it's also example of how rare is it to, like, how many people practice Dharma. You know, of course, there are different traditions, and like people practice not only in Buddhism, you know, and I believe those people also are able to reach, you know, like very profound levels. But I mean, like, even like to look how many people live on this planet, how many people are involved in bad behavior, you know, based on ignorance, and how many people, like, it's like how many people practice, and it's also our karma that we are able to recognize it. And it's just scary. It's really scary because it means that we cannot plan, you know, like, I'll practice next lifetime. We have no clue what happens next lifetime. We might have perfect human body or whatever body is needed for practice, but we might not recognize it. You know, we might, like, how many people walk past Garchen Rinpoche, and like, how many people live in Prescott, in Arizona, and you know, like, some people like just came to GBI recently, and it's like, oh, we live like for 20 years we live in Prescott, and this is first time we're visiting, yeah, and you know, and Rinpoche is already pretty old, you know, and so, and it's kind of scary too, like, but it's also like, see how fortunate we are to be able to meet like true Dharma. So true Dharma that really leads to like ultimate result. This is so amazing. And in terms of practice, yeah, they are like, we can debate too, yeah, about like attachment, non-attachment. I'm not very knowledgeable about like, I'm not Kempo, so Kempo, yeah, you can ask Kempo some questions regarding like stages and whatever. But what I understood, practice is actually very simple. There's all these parts that bring practice together. They're very simple, but it's important. What is difficult, if we don't understand the structure, then we're wandering around trying different teachings, different empowerments, retreats, teachers, so forth. But once we understand structure, what should practice do with your mind, what to concentrate on, and what result should it bring. So then we understand that structure is actually, the skeleton is very simple, you know, and then we can have access from different points, and then we can use different skillful means if we understand how it works with our mind. And what I'm trying to do here, I'm trying to give explanations how practice of shamatha works, like what should happen on which stage, and even if you don't remember the names of all the stages, even if in your practice you cannot recognize what stage you are practicing right now, this is not so important. The important is like you concentrating on object, and like if you do it again and again, we just did it a couple times, 10 minutes, you know, 15 minutes, it's actually might not be enough time to have experience, you know, but So if you practice at home and do this like 100 sessions like that, there is no way you will not have experience. There is no way. You know, it's all why people go to retreat. So they just do practice there mostly, you know. And then when you do practice, like this experience arise. So things I'm talking about here, you might understand them all, you might understand them partially. So, but if you want to have like really clear understanding what should happen with your mind through practice of shamatha, you can do it through your experience. And for that, you just have to sit down and do it again and again and again. There is no other way. We speak about like instant path to enlightenment. And of course, in comparison to this kalpas, you know, and this all these lifetimes, like our lifetime, like 20 years that we spend on Dharma, 50 years, this is kind of instant, you know, in comparison to all this amount of time, you know. But it still means that we have to sit down and do it. There is no other way, unfortunately, you know. And but it does bring us to this ultimate kind of realization sooner or later. And here is very simple. You choose your object, you sit down, you place your gaze, you know, on the object, and you just sit and you use different skillful means so you don't forget. And when you are able to remember, you start noticing the moments when you're about to get distracted. So this is very important. And sometimes, and also it's going to be mixture of everything. Sometimes you are not noticing and you just get distracted. But other times you kind of feel this wave of distraction is approaching, and then you have to tighten up a little bit, like tighten up your attention and be here. And sometimes what's happening, like from my own experience, like how it was happening, sometimes it's very easy to concentrate on object, and then you feel like you're about to lose it. You tightening your attention, and it's like a wave, you know, coming, and you just hold there, like you're not really, and you're like, your attention is like shaking. You kind of try to grasp for the object so you don't forget about this. It's not even proper concentration. It's just like you're holding on it, so this wave of distraction does not knock you out. And then this wave passes and it's clear again, and it's going to be like that, you know, like it's going to be in waves. It will be the moments when it's easy to concentrate and it's very clear, will be they will alternate with these moments when it's very difficult to concentrate. But at least you already remember, you don't forget. It's not steady, it's still shaking, but you already remember about object. So, and this is what we were talking about. This is third stage. When you distracted, you remember, you bring your attention back, and then you start to recognize when distraction about to happen. Any questions?
Just thinking about how skillful the Tibetan word gom, right, means grow accustomed to, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are we growing accustomed to? Well, in the beginning, like you said, we get hooked on phenomena, but then we're growing accustomed to being hooked on Dharma. Right? I was just thinking about that. Like, it totally switches, right?
Yeah, and it's all about habits. You know, like we're habituated to distraction, we're habituated to right choices or to wrong choices, we're habituated to dharma, and that's why we recognize it from life to life. You know, we're habituated to our guru, and that's why we recognize our guru when we meet him. It's not necessarily that we remember our past lifetimes, but we have this feeling This is we met somebody who is very close to me. I can trust this person. This is recognition also. And scary part is like you cannot logically, plan that you will recognize everything in next lifetime. This recognition happens through your habitual tendencies. And then this habituation happens on many levels. So then you sit down to practice and you bring your attention back to this pebble, and then it's you develop habit, stay with it. You develop habit to remember, and then you develop habit to remain to be in clear state of mind, like when you have clarity, when you have awareness, and then you remember habit to be in natural state of mind. And it's all about habituating. And also it's like we exchanging bad habits for good habits at the beginning.
So yeah, I just wanted to add, like from my experience about the distraction. So sometimes when you're you're concentrated on an object, and you like get this feeling like this wave of thoughts arises, and there are like thousands of them start to arise, and you're about to like give up and say like, okay, I got to take a break. I need a pause. But at this moment, if you tough it out and carry on, it just suddenly like stops, like all this wave, and then just like it goes like without any effort, like for like certain period of time, maybe like 30 seconds or something like that. So it's just like this moment when it's almost unbearable and you cannot take it anymore. You need like, I want to take a break. I want to take a break. But if you don't, and if you like just tough it out this moment, so then it just this like comes this sort of like
The wave passes.
it just abruptly just stops at some point, and then you have this like short period, maybe longer period. I don't know. Maybe other practitioners have for a longer time, but like for me, it might be like 10, 20 seconds when it just goes like without your any effort, and you can even enjoy this. Like,
But that's your skillful means. So that's like
yeah,
to
do
toughen
not
up.
stop.
This works for you, and so that's also what Buddha was talking about, like this string,
Right.
like tuning. So sometimes you have to kind of toughen up a little bit, and sometimes you have to relax. So, but it's not happening on the outer level. It's happening in your mind, and only you know when to apply this method. Only you. And it's like we're also learning how to apply skillful means, when to use them, and it's like it's not necessarily working every time. We're learning, and we become skillful with skillful means after we try like 1,000 times. So then sometimes students are asking teachers like, should I apply this, should I apply that, but sometimes there is no proper answer. You have to try it. It's like when you're learning how to ride bike, nobody can just, you cannot learn it just by listening to it. You have to try it, and then you kind of how to like how to keep balance. So it's like you're learning. The same with practice, but also the skillful means like concentration. Depending on the level of your concentration, you might use different skillful means. And I say like first, like we're using the bell sound like as a reminder. We're using this when our attention turns inside, and we're starting looking inside our mind, and we recognize this wave of distractions that is coming. So then we can apply the skillful means, um, like kind of tightening, like becoming more not tense, but like more like organizing ourselves, holding on, in one spot until this wave disappears. Yeah, and so, but like I was using also like different skillful means at some point when my attention was not very strong. Like I would feel these waves and it just would knock me out, like I would feel it's coming, but I was not able to hold it. So then I would do all kind of visualizations. Like I would, like if I would do inner visualization for example, on a ball in my navel chakra, I would like visualize like all kind of hooks, that would, like it like this distraction would try to rip me away from the object, and I would visualize this like strong hooks, like, and it would allow me to go a little bit but not all the way. So yeah, so it's kind of like whatever works for you so you don't forget. Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe this is a total different practice, or maybe it's one of the skillful means, but I find that if I'm following my breath and looking at the pebble, that I'm able to do that much more in a concentrated fashion, and that thoughts aren't coming as much, let's just say. So I wonder, is that appropriate for this, what we're doing here
That's
today?
wonderful.
Okay.
That's actually like I was going to talk a little bit later about breathing. This actually also this wonderful skillful means, and like it's like you found it for yourself. It's working for you, and it's actually very powerful because breath is always with us. Yeah, and I also found whenever we practice concentration and we're using breathing techniques, it's much easier to hold attention. And yeah, that's actually wonderful that you experiment with that. That's what I say, whatever works for you, and that's what makes you skillful. And that's when we are starting to rely on ourselves, because at the beginning we rely on outer teacher, but outer teacher only can tell you, kind of show map. Of course, the skillful teacher like Garchen Rinpoche can introduce you into the nature of mind, but still, like, okay, when we talk about path, so like these techniques about shamatha, it's like a map. I'm talking about this, I'm drawing this map of paths. But then when you start apply your skillful means, you're walking your path. You become skillful. You're learning how to walk or how to write, and that's when you become like a yogi, like real practitioner with skillful. Real practitioner will always have skillful means. There is no practitioner without skillful means. Because practice is not only sitting and reading sadhana and reciting mantras and thinking about something else. Like real practice, and when you find the way, find the methods which will help you to concentrate properly, or to sit properly, or like to avoid negative or transform negative emotions properly. And everybody is different. So breathing is very powerful if you can use it, if you follow your breath, or like whether you counting your breath, looking at the stone, or like you visualizing as like the cycle of breath, going. Actually, there are exercises within deity yoga practice when you visualize deity in front of you, and when you recite mantra, you also visualize, like Vajrakilaya practice has it, as you exchange your the cycle of breathing of breath with the deity. This is also skillful means for remembering, for being present.
Lama, the third level you're calling repeating resting?
Repeated resting.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm sure there are like different variations, how they call these levels.
Yeah.
But it's basically means that you are able to remember about object for longer periods of time, and you are learning to recognize the waves of distractions.
And one thought about the wave. I'm hearing you say that sometimes you would tighten up so that when the wave would come, you would be prepared. Would there be a skillful means that would involve surfing that wave for some people? Maybe just being able to ride that wave, or is that not
So
probably
when we
right?
speak about riding the wave, so what do you mean? Like if you are able to, yeah. So it's we speak about different levels of practice, you know, and it's okay. Okay, so you can allow wave to come, but only when you are able not to grasp at this. When we speak about wave of destruction, or like I speak not about necessarily arising thoughts of emotions, but when thoughts and emotions are arising, we have tendency to kind of grasp at them, yeah, and think and kind of experience states of mind based on these thoughts and emotions. When I'm talking about tightening up, like, and kind of not allowing this wave of destruction to knock you down, I mean, we continue, we tightening up our attention on the object, on this pebble. So we kind of ignoring those thoughts. Shamatha practice is about ignoring thoughts that are arising at the beginning, at least. So because we are not able, when we try not to ignore them, we grasp at them. And riding wave is more like if you are able to recognize that this wave is inseparable from the nature of mind, you can ride this wave. But it's then we're talking about practice of Mahamudra more, you know, like when you allow the manifestations kind of arise, but there is recognition this manifestation are the nature of mind. Maybe this is more like riding this wave.
Thank you so much.
But in shamatha practice, why we say this kind of practice, it is artificial state of mind. This is shamatha practice is not natural state of mind. It is artificial. It's created as a method to learn how not to grasp. And when we speak about proper concentration is the opposite side of non-grasping. You know, so that's what I told before. If there is strong grasping, it's very difficult to concentrate. If there is strong concentration, it means the grasping is not so strong. And proper concentration should be effortless. It should be it's soft. It has this soft feeling. So it's not tense at all. So it's not like Superman wave, you know, it's where you place your attention and it's very soft. Look, for example, at Garchen Rinpoche. There is this softness, but this is person who can concentrate perfectly, you know, and this softness is also kind of manifestation of his quality, of his ability to not to grasp. And at the beginning, like when I heard about practices of channels and chakras, I thought it's only about this visualization, about concentration. And there was question, how does yogi sees his or her own channels and chakras? Is it like, yeah, we have this subtle body and we have these chakras and channels, and then whether you create them, like whether you really see them, yeah, at the beginning we visualize them, we don't really see them, but we don't see them not because they do not exist, but because our perception is very gross. When we learn how not to grasp, even in practice of shamatha, when you reach that balanced state of mind, you will see that you become very soft. It is very clear, but there is softness in this, like delicacy in this. And when you reach this level, when your mind is balanced and there is this softness, you will be able to see deeper in your mind. You will be able to see how thoughts are disappearing. You will be able to see like thoughts without grasping at them. You will be able to see then how thoughts are appearing. So, and then like the more balanced your mind or your concentration is, the less grasping is, the more subtle things you're able to see. And the yogi that sees their channels and chakras, it's not that they have these magical powers. It's because their grasping is at the minimal level. The mind is very calm. The clarity of mind is very strong. And through this, they are able to perceive their subtle bodies, their chakras and channels. So, and it's all come naturally. There is no magic in this. It's just about how are you able to calm your mind, and this is the method to calm your mind. And so basically on this level, also when we start to recognize the distraction and we are able not to fall under its spells, so we get this habit of being present becomes stronger. So you will experience moments where you are present, present here and now, and when you are present, then it's very easy to place your attention on object. And then, so, and I say, as I said, like you kind of fluctuating between all these levels. You know, at some point you have like really strong clarity, and then you distracted, and then you go back to the first stage of Shamata. And it's okay, it should be like that. So you will be fluctuating, you know. Then then we go to the next stage, which called fully resting. Fully resting. So, and on this level, you almost never forget about object. You are able to remember about the object. But it does not mean that, but it is not yet the final stage of Shamata. You are kind of remaining with object, but it's still like your attention fluctuating, you know, like there is like different waves. It's not even, it's not calm, but you already are able to remember about it most of the time. You might still sometimes get distracted for short period of times, but for most of the time you're able to remember about object. And here, because you're turning your attention to the object and your habitual tendencies calm down, then these qualities of mind, clarity and awareness really start to shine, you know, like you really start to recognize them. So how it might happen at the beginning? You turn your attention to the object, whether it's breathing or like pebble or any other object of concentration. And at some point, you kind of concentrate on object, but at the back of your mind, there is something that noticing like kind of patches of thoughts or emotions. They're the kind of, it's like broken, you know, parts. Like there is like thoughts arising, maybe not fully forming. The kind of, you pick up some emotion. They're not so strong, but there is something at the back of your mind is noticing that while you're concentrating on object. So when this happening, what is noticing those thoughts? That's your awareness. And when we speak about that is a stage where your awareness starts like to appear, kind of come out. This is a sign that awareness is coming through, you know. And it's kind of, it looks like your mind kind of split in two. Not, but it has two sides or two facets, you know, like one portion of your mind is concentrating on the object, but another portion of your mind is noticing thoughts that still are arising, because you still have these karmic tendencies. They still appear, and your mind is not completely calm yet. So what I'm talking about, we do not try to force this process. This will happen when you notice that something is still arising. There is maybe those thoughts do not completely form, you know, they kind of try to arise, or they rise partially, just like some thought, there is one thought there, one you're thinking about something, you know, like, and then it disappears, there's some emotion arising, they're not fully developed. So that part, that noticing that, is awareness. You don't do anything with that. You don't jump at that awareness. You don't try to, it's very important at this moment not to think about this. Because I had this obstacle at that moment when I was doing this retreat. There was no lamas around, there were no lamas around, so I did not know what to do with that. So I had no clue what was going on. So I just was concentrating, and then like this kind of stuff started to appear. And at the beginning, I did not know what to do with that, but thanks God, I was continuing, you know, like placing my attention on the object. And then I understood that it's awareness which observes what's going on in your mind. This kind of awareness at this point is not very strong yet. It's not very, it's like easy, you know, like it's, if you distract it, it's gone. Or if you start thinking about this, it's gone. So the main instruction here, continue, concentrate on object. No matter what happens, your attention should go to the object. Questions? Okay, so let's take 5 minutes break, okay?
It'll come to you in the midst of the retreat.
I don't even know if it'll open it.
Or you can write it down. And then you'll have to try to remember the rest of the retreat. That's like,
That'll be it. Rock, pass, no, rock. I honestly, between like, don't walk away from this rock, don't take focus off of this rock, and then the other half of the time, I'll be saying to myself, hey, look at this rock, hey, look at that, and I'm like, oh yeah, focus on that, and it's just like, because you know, when you have that first, what is that, like, you're not really having like a conceptual thought, you're just taking it in, and so I'm like, right. So then I like question, like, well, am I like aware of myself doing that, but then part of me is like, don't think, just agree, just go with it. I feel like I'm like a man and woman, like taking my own hands and got it.
But that's interesting experience, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, it's sometimes it's just like you just sit and in order not to forget, you say like rock, 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 and it brings back, yeah.
Earlier when we had the bell though, every so often I'd say rock, bell, 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 no, rock. I would get so eager to be like, I have to remember till the bell. Wasn't.
That's an interesting point, actually, yeah.
When we talk about it's encouraging hearing Andrew say like, oh yeah, if you spin that wave, it will loosen up. Like I think I've had that happen. He describes like 15 seconds after. I have no idea how long that period is when I managed to break through the wave, and then to even like I'm not trying to remember that I broke through the wave, but it is like a fact to acknowledge because the other half of the time, you know, it does feel so impossible that you do end up. It's either succumbing to the thoughts or I end up in a negative cycle of like self-talk of like you can't focus. Yeah, all the games.
No, but that's like, I think everybody goes through it, you know, like, as long as you're trying, as you're doing something, you know, like, but just not sleeping through, I mean, like, not waiting until the session ends, you know, then it's still helpful, yeah.
I mean, it's exciting even to just remember that that's what you're doing for yourself. Sure, there is a part of you that's like, oh, when I get to the end, but there's another part of you that's able to respond to that part. And, you know, when I was first starting meditation here, every so often, usually Pete and I at you, or Anna, who used to sit next to me, she's the most still person ever. And, you know, you realize like you're pushing up against yourself. Like I'd be like, I'm the one making myself sit here. I could go on my phone, I could go in the room. No one's gonna look at me and say, Sarah, go sit back down.
Actually, group events are very skillful in that way too, because like Andre was saying, you go past your normal comfort level, where your habit of where you quit or where you think, oh, I think I need a cup of coffee, whatever, and so you can surprise yourself.
Yeah.
Because, good grief, I wouldn't have done this, and you're actually thinking less about yourself.
Yeah, I
in
become
that way.
confident, yeah.
Yeah, and so you learn something. I also think sometimes of what it was in the ancient Greece, I think the Delphic Oracle, I think its slogan was, know yourself, know thyself.
Know thyself.
And this is an intense knowing, because you see your habits. And even in the subtle meditation, you realize, oh, I'm holding it all right, but I lose it when I take an in-breath. You know, give yourself a little vacation from, because you think there has to be some force going on. And you can actually experience and suddenly, oh my goodness, I can just relax. I don't have even have to do the force of the breath as a support, and it's just the clear image of it. So we learn so much, and it's irreplaceable. You just can't get that through reading a book.
Yeah, it's interesting what you said about force because we like reaching enlightenment is actually about giving up force, but then we actually need it, like while we're on this dualistic level, we do need it in order to, like Rinpoche say, you need effort until you kind of are able to relax in natural state of mind. You need effort to sustain awareness, to sustain concentration. And that's interesting, like how you use force and then it becomes obstacles.
Yes.
But you need to know, like, when is it obstacle not to use force?
Yes, and that only comes through experience, and in a sense, if you look back, you can think of it as wasted experience, but it's not. You're just actually exhausting all your wrong ideas in these subtle ways, and it's just so remarkable. I mean, I think of it sometimes, I was one, for instance, and still am, not a natural, and definitely not a natural with mantra. I thought mantra was just like somehow a lower kind of practice. But you find yourself in retreats, Yamata, whatever, and you're just doing all this mantra, and it just, and you don't even have any kind of faith in it really. You're doing it. Rinpoche says, "Do it." What you're doing, okay, I'll do it. It's kind of mechanical, And then suddenly you can have the experience where you hear the deathlessness in his recorded mantra, and then it's a different animal altogether. And then you still go through the same habit of being mechanical because that's your habit, but there's something there that that mechanical thing is limited, that's actually delusional. It's actually just your own habit, and it just changes everything.
I've run into a lot of, some of that Western attitude of like, oh, well, I can do it in the most fast way possible and just instantly arrive. And one of those people once said to me that mantra was for monkey brain, and at first I disregarded it, but then more recently, in the past few months, I've come to such a place of like recognizing how deeply interdependent the situation is, how much like I don't need these external things to ground back to what the practice is. Like I can't remember it on my own. I have monkey brain. I do need mantra. And since then I finally talked to Kempo about it because it was like, well, now that I've accepted I have monkey brain.
So
Let
I
me
have to
ask you
accept
about this.
first,
And
yeah.
he's like, it's not monkey brain. It's not for any of that, but it's still the humility I arrived at, and the true faith in, oh, this does work. Like the parts of me that I can't get under control. This is what speaks to those parts.
Meditation will dissolve your arrogance, or at least make you see your arrogance. You can't, whatever ideas you have,
It's really, yeah.
Yeah.
you can't believe anyone else.
And I think as a Protestant, I always looked at Catholicism with this sort of admiration that they had the prayers and everything. I was taught, oh, it's
Right.
idols, it's mindless prayers. It's weird stuff.
Yes.
I know, me too.
What's the name of your mindfulness bell app? Is it just called mindfulness?
It's actually does call mindfulness. Mindfulness bell.
Mindfulness bell? All right, thank you.
Yeah, that was beautiful. Did you really have it set for a minute?
Yes.
That's amazing. Yeah, I literally thought it was just for 30 seconds. It kept going off all the time, and I was really embarrassed. I only got about. I was thinking about socks. I was thinking about it was crazy. I'm like, what? That was amazing. I also knew once it went off that I could drift out for a couple seconds. Yeah. But what a great game! It was really wonderful. I'm very impressed. Very impressive. I have to teach that to my kids.
Yeah, it's actually they can kind of play, like not necessarily sitting, but anything that that helps to develop like awareness, like or presence, remembrance. So they can kind of play with each other.
I love what you said, like fascinated with phenomena, but fascinated with Dharma. That was great. Well, you use the word hook, hooked on phenomena, hooked on Dharma.
Fascinating.
I see.
I find you fascinating.
Thank you. Someone did grab my tush at the market this morning.
Well, there you go.
I wasn't arguing with him either.
But maybe
It was you.
Stephanie was arguing?
No, she wasn't there, thank God. But I have this, like, at my age, so I just take it like, hey, glad you find me attractive, but I gotta go.
Okay, friends, we have a little bit of time. Um, so basically, we do mostly talking, not much practice. I hope like you, I really want you to understand the structure of this practice, and then you can. I suggest you do it every day for some time. It's like even if you do 15 minutes a day. What I found, sometimes it's not the length of time when you do it once a week, but when you do it continuously, like every day for some time, it okay, first you get habituated to practice, but then what I found, like in my retreat, following schedule of practice, it's not necessarily has to be the same time every day, but I mean, like, if you decided that you're going to do certain practice every day, like for a period of 1 month, I found it really interesting. It does have effect on your mind. When you start looking into your mind, your outer discipline somehow imprinted in your mind. So when we speak about waves, like recognition, ability not to be distracted, ability to hold on concentration, I found that outer aspects of discipline imprinted on inner discipline when you start already like looking in your mind. So ability to stay with awareness, it's really interesting. And so I don't know how to logically explain it, but it does have effect on the process which happens in your mind. So if you cannot commit for like entire life, which I don't suggest right now, but like if you can commit for 1 week or 1 month, like every day, like I'm doing this practice 15 minutes. It can be Vajra recitation. You can do Shamata practice based on any kind of practice. If you apply these methods, if it's Vajra recitation, you can spend like 15 minutes just concentrating on this ball of flame, in your navel area, just taking it as an object. Whether you use breathing exercises or not, whether you use bell up or other, skillful means. So practice shamatha on object, whatever this object is. Like try it for 1 month. 15 minutes is when sometimes when we struggle with practice, it looks like eternity, but really if we take like 15 minutes, it's not a big amount of time. And see what effect it will have on your mind if you do it every day, like for 1 month. And this is like we're like talking about teachings. This is instruction, but just understanding will not. We're looking for experience. We're looking for experiential understanding. So which comes from your practice, like when you really see the things I'm talking about, then that's what we're looking for. Then you really understand how your mind is working and how your grasping mind working, and then you can understand mind of other beings, because mind of everybody is, this has the same kind of structure, different emotion, different karma, different habits, but the 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 way of working is the same for everybody, for every being. And when you understand your mind, you start to understand mind of other beings. That's how it works. Yeah, and so basically, just like I just will tell a little bit about next stage, but just I'm not going too deep into it. It's like taming or disciplining. So that's when actually you become more stable, and because you have these moments of clarity and awareness, you start to have these moments of pleasure. So practice, before that you might have lots of struggles, or like it may be boring, you need to apply lots of patience, but now you start feeling pleasure from practice. So sometimes in text they say like practitioner recognizing the virtue of practice. But what is that recognition? We feel stability, and from that stability comes pleasure. And this pleasure is direct result of calm mind when we have clarity and awareness. So we speak about natural qualities of our mind, this awareness, clarity, and bliss. So this pleasure or happiness or whatever you call it, this is very pleasurable experience. Start kind of shine through your practice. So now practice is not only struggle, there's also a pleasure. Pleasure which comes from your own mind. So you are in charge, of it. So it might be unstable because it will depend on a period of time when you have when you have clear mind, calm mind. It might not happen in every session, or it might happen for a very short time, but then you will experience this. And this, when we speak about happiness come from one's own mind, we start to experience it when happiness comes from your own mind. And I say it might be not very profound experience of bliss, but it's already something, some pleasure which comes from practice. And then, of course, we will want to practice. We will want to experience that pleasure. Yeah. So then it will be easier to practice. But so then you understand that pleasure comes from your own mind when there is no grasping. So, and there is like conclusion, when there is grasping, there is no pleasure. I mean, we speak about, but that's you get from your experience. That's your experiential understanding already, not because you heard lamas told you, okay, when there is grasping, there is suffering. When there is no grasping, there is happiness. You start experiences in shamatha practice. Any questions?
So this question is not directly related to shamatha practice, but just in general. So sometimes when we meditate, we have this like sinking, right? So when you kind of start falling asleep, like basically, right? So what's the best way to fight the sinking? Because I heard sometimes like you need to concentrate on on a light spot, like a bit higher than your eyesight. But well, it doesn't work for me. So is there any other methods you might have used before?
So with my experience, I just was sitting through it, because I was doing this like in retreat also, like there is no and instructions that Traga Rinpoche gave me, don't move your eyes. That's instructions he gave me. because when you move your eyes, your prana start to move and like thoughts arising. So with me, like you have this 2 hour session, whether you want to sleep or you want to run, you just sit and like you tighten up a little bit. So, but I found I also was doing analytical meditation, so it's basically you have concept instead of outer object, and this concept is your object. So just somehow I just was like applying more effort, and I noticed with time, like when mind becomes more clear, sometimes you even can be tired, but you're not thinking, like your mind is still clear. You can be very tired, you might not like slept enough or like whatever, but your mind is still clear. So this what thinking, what you are talking about, we sometimes we connect it to tiredness, but it's not necessarily connected. I mean, like when we are tired, then of course it's okay. It's maybe it's like we feel sleepy or like mind is not clear when we feel tired, because I don't know why. I don't think it's like really connected to tiredness, but it's maybe it's connected to when we open up to this deeper level of our mind. That's what we see is there. When we become calm. So instead of clarity, sometimes we just want to fall asleep.
Well, my
But you're
thought,
talking about methods, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, there are like
it's,
different methods, yeah, yeah. So walk around, like take short break,
breaks,
like drink some water, like do some exercise, yeah. So anything that helps you to kind of freshen up. Yeah, meditate in the morning, or like meditate when you feel very good, lots of like energy, when your mind is fresh, when you're rested, yeah.
or is it possible that this thinking occurs due to like karmical tendencies, or
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
this
it does.
obscurations
It does.
basically,
It
right?
does. It does. But actually, I notice it's a lot at the beginning when people like just, for example, like for beginners, it's almost always
Yeah.
when they start meditate, that's they feel sleepy. So and it's very it's happening a lot. But then with practice, with like when you apply more effort, or like you practice more and like you get to this point of clarity, then even you can be very tired, but you don't have this dullness of mind.
Thank you.
But also, I have an idea that, it just strikes you how much we learn about ourselves through this simple, really, practice. I went for years, especially in Yamataka, of this fear of not getting enough sleep. And just this constant kind of obsession is, if I miss this session, I'm just screwed. What am I going to do? And it never really went away. I mean, I just struggled with this for 20 Yamatakas, something like that. And then we went to Tibet, 4 of us, a few years ago. And because of the altitude, I couldn't sleep. And when we came back from Tibet, I couldn't sleep. I went a week without sleep. I mean, maybe just 5 minutes here and there. But I realized this fear that I had that somehow I was going to die, it was just a completely self-created idea, but it was completely motivating me. And I thought it was objectively true. If I had talked to some sleep therapist, he would have been reinforcing my delusion. This is something completely different. And you can experience it too, even with physical pain. You can be in the midst of, certainly in even like a week-long retreat or something, you're just in agony and just struggling, and you're obsessing about it. And then something happens with the mind, and suddenly you're flexible, the pain is gone, you have some inspiration. Rinpoche did something. I mean, and so you see how these are all just, we make them so solid and material and absolute. And of course we live like that, but at the same time, they're not really, they're just mind.
Thank you, Frank. And it's like also we're talking about practice should be like one string. that goes like that is present through all your states of mind. You know, like good emotions, bad emotions, like sleepiness, agitation, but it's just like goes, it's like continuous. And at the beginning, it's continuous through remembering. We might not experience much, but then later, through this remembering, we learn like we get like we learn how not to grasp, and that's when other, because it's also like our habitual tendencies, they might not arise as thoughts, you know, or emotions, but they arise as dullness, you know. This is like ignorance, you know, like, so this might be this blocks of ignorance just like coming up, you know, and this actually good because we
Yeah.
going through this, like purifying these blocks. It's actually a very good experience. Yeah, it's, but and in regards of like practices like Yamantaka, like these retreats when we practice for many hours, we don't get enough sleep. I had this experience like in Ukraine. We did this Yamantaka retreat in Roman's house. Thanks you, thank you. Yeah. So and like at the beginning, I saw that some people were very nervous because this was like first intense for some people a retreat, like where you have like night sessions, you know, and then like I told him, listen, this should be like organic. This is like be a, like your life. Like the practice does not mean necessarily that you like sit perfectly all the time and like you're in this right state of mind. And like if you are not rested, you cannot sustain it. Or like if you ate something that you don't like, you it fluctuates. It's important to have some level of awareness, like remembering this string of practice, you know, altruistic motivation or whatever keeps you, you know. And then you actually, it retreats, it's a methods to learn how to bring practice through like all your states of mind, you know, positive, negative, you're tired, you're not tired, you're healthy, you're sick. So, and then at the end, like everybody relaxed because they saw it's not like concentration camp, you know, like where like you must be like it's very natural, you know.
That happened. That can happen. You do that in Tibet. Yeah.
Oh, not in Tibet. We did in retreat all kind of stuff.
Oh, wow.
You can write book like how many different things we did. Yeah, you know, like in order, because you when you practice like 6 yogas and then like there is like these like dream yogas and all this stuff where like you have to, I mean, apply these techniques and you kind of need to wake up often and all this stuff. So I'm like not even, yeah, we tied also our hair and also we tied ourselves, like I did like 2 nails and a wall and like with my meditation belt so I wouldn't fall, you know. But you know, and the point was so you would not fall asleep, you know, like completely, you know, like until the morning. But body is very smart, like no matter what you do, you end up, you know. Yes. So and like the concept of the box is also that you're sitting, you might fall asleep, but then you are actually waking up, and that was funny because like even in box, people like somehow you find out yourself in the morning, you know, like lying in the box, you know. So you and it's like and it doesn't mean that you fail your practice. You are learning.
Yeah.
You are like you're trying different methods, you know, and so like then sooner or later you find something that works for you, you know, without killing you.
Yeah, right.
So
I have another story though while we're talking about sleep. So we did one independent Yamataka here in Rochester. I can't remember if you were there, Shiravka, or not. Were you on the retreat land? Yeah. But at any rate, the windows are closed and, you know, you don't see the sky for the length of the retreat. but we had half the group was Chinese ethnically and half European Westerner. And people have different cultural comforts with wind blowing on you. So we had fans on it because it was hot. It was in the summertime and it was just like brutal hot in there. So somebody put up a fan blowing on them. But the Chinese people, that's not healthy to have air being blown on you. So they were always turning it off. So I somehow ended up being the in silence, the negotiator, writing notes back and forth. So we had a wonderful retreat. But at the end of the retreat, the last day, it was all over. I forgot her name, Samantha. One of the Chinese ladies, a wonderful woman, student of Gar Rinpoche, she called Rinpoche on the phone as soon as it was over. And she just was telling about the retreat and everything and how did it go. And he said, how did it go? It was wonderful, Rinpoche. He said, you slept too much. So we have help all the time, all the time. It's hard to believe, but it's really true.
Yeah. So yeah, this is, thanks for sharing. So basically, it's kind of to easily elaborate. So it's when we practice, we should be kind to ourselves too. You know, like if we understand the goal of the practice, and so we should take good care ourselves. You know. So we shouldn't, we should not die, trying to sit straight on or doing practice the way we think it should be done. So it should be helpful too. But we should be very honest with ourselves. It's like Sarah was telling during break, the practice is really good tool to strip away your arrogance, and your pride. And we speak about Buddha, who is like called courageous, conqueror. So he's courageous not because he conquered like outer demons or whatever, but because he had courage to look in his own mind and strip away all this arrogance, do all these steps, all these practices or whatever, recognize his ignorance, accept it, and then transform it. So, and I think like looking in mind and accepting that we are not perfect is the right way, and it's very important step to accept, like, I'm not the perfect, but it does not mean that I'm bad practitioner. Because usually what happens, people try to learn how to concentrate, and they either get discouraged, or like get like really proud if they have experience. But it's not about this. Like we understand our faults, but we are not act upon them. So we do not grasp at our faults, so if I see that I cannot concentrate for 2 minutes, and then I'm telling myself I'm bad practitioner, so I'm already grasping, I'm missing the point of the practice. The point of the practice not to judge whether you're a bad practitioner or good practitioner, but point of practice is like, so you place your attention on this pebble, and through this you're learning not to grasp. But when you're judging yourself, you're grasping. So nobody, like Buddha doesn't care like how on what level of practice you're right now. What Buddha cares, or like what teachers care, that you place your attention to the right point of practice. And then because everybody at the beginning is imperfect. Like Rinpoche was telling stories about childhood, what his father called him. Like he's like, you're not tulku, you're a demon, and that father of Gar Rinpoche was telling him because he was not behaving good, and he was. So, yeah, but look at Rinpoche, so it's not about judging yourself. Do not grasp about like judging whether you're bad practitioner or good practitioner. It's about placing your attention, as you're instructed.
I already know I'm worse.
Okay, so we're going to judge you now. So, okay, so
No one's disagreeing.
Do you have any questions?
So this is really, really quick, but Lamala, can you, you've mentioned the nature of mind several times. Can you explain a little bit about more about what that is? If you have a few more hours, I guess.
Yeah, thanks for question, but yeah, I really would like to concentrate on shamatha. The only few things I can say about nature of mind. In order to experience it, we need lots of merit, accumulation of merit and wisdom. And for accumulation of merit and wisdom, so we practice 6 parameters. We recognize negative emotions and we transform them. And actually, transformation using skillful means for transformation of negative emotion is application of wisdom. So this is kind of wisdom that which we need. And then the natural state of mind unfolds spontaneously by itself. You cannot plan it. So, but in order to describe it, it's impossible because it's beyond conceptual perception. So whatever label we put on this experience is already wrong. So we can just go around it. So like just kind of try to touch it, try kind of give this feeling, you know, but it's really impossible. And it's actually much easier to experience it than to explain it.
That makes sense.
So, but in order to explain, to experience it, we do all these practices, you know, and using shamatha practice in any kind of practice, whether it's Vajra recitation or deity practice or Guru yoga or like just concentration on outer object, that's a method which helps us to cut through our habitual tendencies. Like, and this what purifies our karma, and that's which brings us closer to the experience of nature of mind.
Well said. Thank you so much. I knew that was a big question. Amazing. Thank you.
Thanks. Yes.
So,
Oh, it's off now.
I think is that on? Yep. So as far as with the eyes, if we are going to focus on our breath or a Vajra recitation where we're going to focus on the red ball of light in our belly, do we still have to have the eyes partially open? Because I find that I actually get sleepier when my eyes are partially open than when I close them, because then they'll start to, I don't know, they tire from being partially open and then I feel more tired. So is that necessary, or can the gaze still be somewhat downward with the eyes closed?
So it's up to you, whatever works for you, because like, so, okay, so the point of practice is to learn how to concentrate on the object. And if it's easier for you with closed eyes or open eyes, so it's up to you. So like I personally meditate mostly with open eyes, unless I meditate at night, you know, like, but that's my habit, you know, so it's like, that's how I learned. Because even like if you meditate with open eyes, you still look inside. Like even like you concentrate on inner visualization, yeah, you still kind of look inside, and like then it doesn't matter. Like some people get sleepy when their eyes closed, but so yeah, when you get sleepy, maybe it's good to open your eyes, but do what you feel comfortable for you.
Thank you.
So you talked about how shamatha can help you in the rest of your life. I mean, just kind of going about your normal day. I wondered, is there a shamatha practice that we can use when we're driving the car or at work or in the garden or whatever. I mean, there's,
Absolutely, yeah.
yeah, what would you
So
recommend?
absolutely, anything can be object. Like shamatha practice is when we place our attention on object. So any activity in life, like where you can pick up object, it can become shamatha practice. Of course, I suggest at the beginning to use like repetitive activity that has this actions that repeat. So, like for example, if you're washing dishes, like you have like 20 plates or whatever, every time you take plate, then the object of concentration can be like the touch, like when you touch with your fingers plate, or like sound of water running. So you can choose anything as object of your concentration, and then when you like wash, for example, your plate, and you choose object of concentration as a touch, so that's where your attention goes. And it's very important, like at the beginning, to use simple activity. Yeah. So if it's gardening, if you whatever work you do in garden, if it's pulling each weed, you pulling, so you do not forget from one weed. It's like when you pulling one weed, you can concentrate it on this weed, and then not to forget about next, bring attention to the next. It's like mantra recitation, from one mantra to another mantra. Or you can concentrate, you can help yourself with a breath, exercise, or like feet touching the ground, like it's important, just be very very clear about what the object of concentration is. Sometimes also it's good to visualize like deity, like one, like every weed, like tip of every weed has deity, whatever, and so then, or something like which kind of magnetize your attention, yeah. So it's about at the beginning we cultivate remembering, ability not to forget, and you also can use this small counter to count how many weeds you were able to pull out without being distracted. And so you do this exercise 10 minutes. You don't have to do it for a very long time. Like how long is your activity, like, and then you move to the next activity. And it's actually very good if you have similar activity which you perform every day, which you turn into shamatha practice. And that would be your official practice as well. So you have official practice on sitting on meditation cushion, and then you have another part of official practice, like not official, but anyway, like everyday practice which you perform every day. And like this is like formal becomes also like formal practice, like. And if it would be very good if you choose activities that you perform every day and turn it into practice. That's actually your like you're using skillful means which will help you to turn your entire life into the path, and so if it's showers that you're taking every day, or if you're walking with your dog, or like if you like doing and if you're like walking with a dog in a park, so then you can practice this with like trees, from one tree to another tree. I'm visualizing deity on each tree, and I'm not forgetting from I came to this tree, I recite mantra of this deity, and I click, okay, this is one, and so on. And then at the end of your walk, like you count how many times you did not forget, and next day. So, and then in this way, it should be very short, like no more than 15 minutes, so you don't get tired. And then you add another activities, and another activities, and then you will see how it affects your sitting practice too, because then your daily practice and daily activity will support your sitting practice, so yeah. But it's like up to your imagination but it should be like do not be spontaneous in it. Today I'm practicing, tomorrow I'm not practicing. If you choose some activity, take it as your practice. At least decide, okay, for 1 week I'm going to do this. Next week I might do another activity. Try to experiment. And sometimes it's difficult to remember, so put a sticker, like above your sink, or something like that. So just use different methods, which will, like if you switch light in your room, put sticker close to this, close to that. Every time like lights, you put light in your room on, so you just say mantra of Amitabha. So then this way, when you die and go to Devachen, the Amitabha mantra you have this kind of connection to light, something like that. Yeah. Okay, friends, so we can do few minutes of practice. And would you like to use bell reminder as well? Like, okay, so you can do stone, or you can try something else. Like if you do Vajra recitation, so just concentrate on this ball of this red ball in your navel area. Just it's not necessarily to do Om Ahum right now, but just take this ball as an object of concentration. Just concentrate on it. Or if it's like Hung letter or like anything else, try to concentrate on them. Okay. dedication prayers. Yeah, dedication.
Om Mani Padme Hum Ri. 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 Gewani Nuduna Chen Rezi Guang Drup Jurchi Drowa Chigyang Maluma Dei Sala Gobarshu.
Thank you. Have good evening and see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.